What is going on YouTube? It's Andreas here from Symmetry 4-wheel drive and welcome back to the channel. Now in today's video I'm super amped because we are going to be fitting the Gobi-X rear bar onto our 80 Series LandCruiser behind me here. And this bar is one of the last pieces of the Gobi-X Barwork puzzle that we are going to be installing on the cruiser, and it's one of the most exciting pieces in my mind because it's just such a cool design, is so functional and looks really great. It also has an incorporated swing arm for a spare tire or spare wheel and tire, and we are going to be doing a separate video just on installing that, but today we are going to focus on fitting the Gobi-X rear bar on the cruiser. Now, while the other jobs have been pretty simple and easy to do by yourself, we are going to need an extra set of hands for this one because the Gobi-X bar is super robust and pretty heavy as well. So we're going to need an extra set of hands just to fit that onto the vehicle. So let's jump into it. Regarding tools needed to fit this Gobi-X rear bumper onto your LandCruiser, the fitment instructions call for a 19mm spanner and a wrench with a 19mm socket. Though in our case we found there may be a couple other tools that are needed to fit this bumper, but you will see that later in the video, and this may be an isolated case or incident with our vehicle in particular, but this is something that we found extra that we needed in order to make the bumper fit. Now you'll also need a soldering iron, some wire and some solder to wire up the lights at the rear, as well as various other spanners and sockets in order to remove the rear bumper and some of the trim pieces on the rear bumper to fit the new one. So I think there are a couple more tools needed than just your 19mm spanner and ratchet. So to start off, the first part of the process is to remove this OEM bumper that is on the LandCruiser 80 series. So we're going to jump into taking that off and getting it ready for the Gobi-X rear bumper. I think what we'll do is start with getting the spare tire carrier off. This has been fabricated onto the OEM bumper, and we will just start by taking that off and then we can remove the bumper itself. So what we are going to do in order to remove the rear bumper off of the LandCruiser is first start on either side of the vehicle. There are these little screws that hold the mud flap to the rear bumper. We're just going to remove that, or those, on either side with our 10mm socket and just take those off to make sure that the mud flaps don't come with the bumper when we remove it. So I realized for the mud flaps to come away from the rear bumper, there are a couple more screws here that we just need to undo. We're also going to do this one on the outside. So next we are going to remove our trailer plug, and that's just undoing a couple of these screws, and then we just need to remove that and get it out of the way so we can plug it into the new bumper. So now, after sawing off all those bolts, we have the trailer plug loose. So what I'm going to do is just take a photo of where these wires go in the plug itself, so that when I remove the wires now I know where to put them back. So now that the trailer plug is removed, we are just going to move this wiring for it out of the way so that we can remove the rear bumper. So we have removed all the screws that hold this plastic part of the bumper to the mud flap and the flare. So now what we're going to do is remove this bolt that holds this plastic part on with a 12mm socket. There is the other plastic corner removed from the bumper. So now that we have the corner plastic pieces off of the rear bumper, we are going to remove the spare tire carrier that has been fabricated and mounted to the rear chassis. So that's these bolts you can see in here, and then in the chassis rail, I'm not sure if you can see, there are some nuts that we will hold with a spanner and then remove the spare wheel carrier. So we've got those extra plates off. We just need to take these brackets off that hold part of the plate to the rear tow bar bumper part here. And then so we've removed these two brackets on either side, and we're going to remove this tread panel. What do you even call this? we're going to now remove this plate with these 4 bolts, 2 on either side. So we've taken those 4 bolts out. Now we can just take off this rear panel thing. So for this tow bar attachment on the Cruiser, if your bolts are anything like mine, you're gonna have a hard time. Let's not sugarcoat it, or make it out to be less than what it is. These bolts, if they've been in there for almost 30 years like these have, it is extremely difficult, time consuming, and scary that you might snap them when taking this off. It's taking a lot of force. I mean, to be honest, each one I thought we were gonna snap before they came out. There's just a lot of rust buildup in them, and they are very tough to take out. So those are those 3 bolts on either side holding this tow bar. So we've got all of those side bolts out. So now we just need to take the center mounting bolts out. That's these two and these two, so 4 in total.
This is the redneck side.
That has taken much longer than expected, but everything is finally off after sawing and angle grinding and pry breaker barring and absolutely everything. We've got it off finally. Just because of seized bolts and rusted bolts, it took 3 times as long as what it should have, but now we can fit the Gobi-X bumper on. So what I want to do here is just weigh some of the old bumper components to see how much we gain fitting the new Gobi-X rear bumper. So for these components we have 3.1 kilograms. For this rear tow bar we have 15 kilograms. So for this spare tire carrier with the tire on it we have 50 kilograms. So in total all of the rear bumper parts we took off equal around 70 kilograms. So I want to weigh this rear Gobi-X bar now, but we can't balance it on the scale. So the scale goes up to 150 and I weigh 105. So I'm going to stand on the scale and try hold that. And we're probably going to go over 150, but I'm guessing it weighs maybe about 50-55 kilos. If I can't get a weight, I'll just ask Gobi-X and see what they say.
Just engage your lower back. Nice. I'm gonna let go. Yeah, okay. So it's definitely over 40.
So we tried to weigh it, but it just gives us an error, which means it's definitely over 47 kilos. I'll find out from Gobi-X how much it weighs. We're just going to put copper slip on these bolts and then get in place and position to work the bumper onto the rear here. So yesterday when we were about to fit the rear bumper, we got the bumper on and started sliding it in towards the front of the car, and then we noticed that it was catching on something, and where it was catching was on the exhaust here. You could call it the tailpipe, it's just the end of the exhaust. And we found that the exhaust is sitting just a bit too high for the bumper to slide on and get into its right place and position. So what we are going to do here is cut off this hanger for the exhaust so that we can move the exhaust down and out of the way, and then we can slide the new bumper on, and then we can just weld up this hanger for the exhaust again and get that sitting where it needs to be. So we have got the exhaust hanger off, and if you can see here, the exhaust now has enough play and movement that we should be able to slip the bumper past that now. So this is day 2 now, and we are just busy figuring out where we are going to run the wires for the trailer plug. It's not an absolutely simple sort of intuitive way, so we're trying to figure something out here to get it as simple as possible.
Really nice. Every time you get these things, it's like, to get the thing to fit perfect off the weld like that one. Very good.
So we are still just busy with testing that all the wiring will be correct once we put it in the car. Just double checking everything before we connect it all. So this is where we stand now at the moment. We can get the bumper on and off easily enough, and it fits to a degree. Now the one thing that's not working for us is we can get the bolt holes to align on one side of the bumper with the chassis and the mounting brackets, and if we get one side to align, then the other side is out, or we can get the other side to align, but then the other side is out. So opposite sides, basically one will align, the other won't. Now with that being said, we went to Gobi-X and saw them, and they measured up the bumper and checked that it was square and checked that it fitted their dimensions and specifications on their drawings, and the bumper itself seems to be true and square. So that leads us to believe that there could be maybe something, a variance on the chassis itself, that is not allowing this bumper to fit 100%. So from here we basically need to have a look at it and see what we can do to get the bumper to align properly and the bolt holes to all line up. So we might have to slot those holes slightly, or we'll have a look now and see what we can figure out and show you what we're doing. So we'll take a look under there and see what's going on. So my chassis on this side doesn't have captive nuts welded in the chassis where the bumper should mount at the bottom, and I think there should be captive nuts there. So what Brad did for me was tap up a nut block, and that is going to be our captive point on the inside of the chassis rail for the bolts to thread into. So he just drilled the holes in there and tapped them, and then we will bolt to that. So we found a high spot on the chassis under here where we think that the bumper is catching a bit when we're trying to fit it. So we're gonna hit that with a mallet and hopefully get that more in line, and then test fit the bumper again to see if it then aligns. It doesn't look pretty, but that is what we have to do. We'll just clean up all the dust and then give it a little spray of black to prevent any rust. And then eventually I'll also just get some thick washers just laser cut out for this to distribute the load of the bolt better. But that is what we are looking like.
Show you something. I think you're gonna like it. Don't hesitate, stir up the wave. Don't make me wait, go on and on and on and on. A sweet escape between my legs. Chase me away, don't you stop. Why does it rain, how does it lie? Your lips on my lips, saving my life. I'll be your anchor when you go down. Don't you wanna die? Hey love, let's do wild things. Goosebumps over my body when we jumping. I think I'm drowning. If I stay right with you, you'll be drowning too. Hey love, let's do wild things. Goosebumps over my body when we jumping. I think I'm drowning. If I stay right with you, you'll be drowning too. You'll be drowning.
It's definitely not cross-threaded. It's just got a few extra threads.
Yeah, it just tightens it up now. So hopefully this is the last bolt going on now, and then just wiring it up.
And we're keeping the trailer plug as the RSA standard. So I'm cross wiring some of the stuff. So I go ground, and we want white to be ground. We know the light clusters are black ground. We know that your cruiser is white ground, and there's a black ground. So all the blacks go together.
Let's do wild things. Goosebumps over my body when jumping. I think I'm drowning.
So this is
If I stay right with you, you'll be drowning too. Hey, let's do wild things.
I was so nervous though. But nothing.
Goosebumps over my body when jumping. I think I'm drowning. If I stay right with you, you'll be drowning with me. You'll be drowning
So there we go, the trailer plug is installed. So guys, we are finally finished and all wrapped up on this Gobi-X rear bumper install on the 80 Series LandCruiser. And yes, there were some challenges that we faced during the fitment of this bumper, but overall I am super happy and pleased with the final result and how it looks and fits on the car. And we might do a separate video on some suggestions that we could change on the bumper in order to make it fit various applications more easily, and also just provide a little more adjustability on the bumper, but we can look at that at another stage. And I really hope that you enjoyed this video and maybe found it helpful and insightful. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel if you'd like to see more of this 80 Series build and content. So until the next one, we'll see you again very soon. Let's check out how the bumper fits on the car. Cheers.
Say my name. I remember say my name.
Hello!